The Tuesday MPs are among the 338 most anxious people in Ottawa looking for hopeful signs. The parliamentary session is ending tonight, sending them home to work in their ridings for the summer. One of them has just been advocating leaving right after the show. All right, let's bring them in for security talk and a look back at what has or hasn't been accomplished in the 2016-17 House of Commons. Marco Mendicino is the Liberal Parliamentary Secretary of Justice. Karen Vecchio, Conservative MP from Southwestern Ontario. And Alistair McGregor is NDP Justice Critic. Welcome to you all.
Hey, Don.
All right, well, you've had your say for a minute. Let's talk about Karen. Karen says, I want to catch that plane. No, but before you run off, I want to get your thoughts. Like, you know, we just had Mr. Fadden on who said, you know, it seemed to have found the right balance. You got any objections to what this bill has to say on national security?
Well, you know, for myself, I'm from a community where last summer we heard about a possible terrorist threat in Strathroy, so in the neighboring riding with Aaron Driver last year. So I think it's really important that we have all hands on deck when it comes to this. And we see across the world many of these things happening. I really have to see what's going to happen here. I myself am always skeptical because I think when it comes to the security of our country, it's the most important thing. But at the same time, I have to read this legislation a little bit more and get right down to the dirt of it because we have to see what's being give and take. I also think it's going to have a lot. There seems to be a lot of levels, which could also just bog down the process.
It's a real thick piece of legislation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Somebody might call it an omnibus bill. No. Alistair, did you see anything in the red flag you?
Well, it's early days yet. You know, we've only just had a preliminary look at the bill, but I think a few things that stood out. I thought Richard Fadden's talking about how the parliamentary committee, the commissioner, and the agency, how those three bodies will work together. I thought that was a pretty interesting point for him to raise, and I myself am curious about that. I still am curious about the metadata that CSIS is allowed to retain, and some of it may not be related to national security concerns, and I think that the fact that the federal court just a few months ago raised concerns about this, and this is going to actually allow CSIS to retain that data. I think Canadians are going to have conversations and questions about why do our national security agencies need all of this massive data about Canadians that may not be related to national security.
We'll get your thoughts, if I can, on this, Marco. Alice has raised a good point. I mean, Fadden said sometimes you need to have emergency access to these authorities and get this stuff moving quickly because terrorists don't wait around for people to get time to catch up to them. Have you got too much oversight with the intelligence commissioner? Plus, you know, you have this new super agency, and then there's parliamentary oversight, but mostly that's done after the fact.
No, I mean, look, there was one word that Karen mentioned that I think bears repeating, and that is balance. And that's what this legislation does, is that it really recalibrates the balance between ensuring that we can keep Canadians and our borders safe with protecting their rights, especially privacy. And this bill does that in a number of important ways. You mentioned oversight. So we've already seen Bill C-22 make its way mostly through Parliament. That would create the Committee of Parliamentarians. This bill introduces an enhanced level of civilian oversight or expert oversight, which will ensure that at every critical juncture in an investigation, we are striking that balance, which is paramount. But it also does some other important things, Don. It revisits some of the problematic elements of the old Bill C-51, particularly as it relates to threat reduction measures, which would, on their face, potentially violate somebody's charter rights. We have inserted some new language in this bill to specifically and expressly prohibit certain threat reduction measures which would violate the charter. I think that's very important for a lot of Canadians because what they are looking for is balance. They're not looking for policy lurching on either end of the spectrum, which we sometimes see from the opposition. They're looking for a sensible piece of legislation, and Bill C-59 does that.
Isn't that great? He answered a longer answer than you two together.
It's
but the points, his point's well taken. C-51 did tend to run roughshod over the charter a bit in the pursuit of terrorist crackdowns. Do you think this is a better way of protecting rights?
I want to read it more, but let's be honest. Like I said, I'm in the London, Ontario area. We had a threat just last summer. Yep. I think that once again, I can only reiterate, we need to work together and we need to make sure that we can do it fast. By the information that was gathered from the United States, that's how we got into Canada about last summer, what was happening. And so what did they do that we didn't actually have? What did they do that they knew this was happening. So there's questions there too. So I understand there has to be a balance. I understand the charter. I totally respect that. But at the same time, people's security and the security of our nation has to be number one.
They don't have a bazooka to shoot you with today.
Well, no, I'll tell you. No, Don, I mean, look, I don't often take the opportunity to mention it, but having worked on a domestic terrorism case, I understand that there are exigent circumstances in which law enforcement and the intelligence community have to act very quickly. And I like to think that this is common ground amongst all parties. We don't want to politicize national security, and we put a lot of faith and trust in our law enforcement and intelligence community. And what this bill is, it ensures that at every step of the way, they have the legislative parliamentary guidance to do their jobs properly and strike that balance.
You're satisfied with that?
I mean, it's a big bill, as you said, and we have to examine it further. I think if we go back to the parliamentary committee of that was brought about in Bill C-22, ultimately what I would like to have seen in that bill is that we would have given parliamentarians full access. We have members of parliament who on the Conservative benches who had full access to national security measures from the previous government. They're able to keep a secret. And the fact that Bill C-22 did not allows a minister to cut off the committee from reviewing these things, I think that's a problematic element because it is tied into Bill C-59 as well.
Not without having to provide reasons in that rare circumstance, and we hope it doesn't come up often.
Quickly get your thoughts. We're almost done this session, either today or tomorrow. Arnold Chan, a Liberal MP, stood up and gave a poignant observation that things were a little too cranky and chaotic, and we should ban speeches that people are reading, and we should ease off on the heckling. What's your sense of this session, Karen? I mean, has it been more collegial than it has been in the past, or did you think it's getting worse?
I think it's getting worse, to be honest. You know, today we also said goodbye to Denis Lebel, who is a great member of Parliament and really respected by all parties. But I honestly think it's getting worse. I think the official opposition, I can speak for us, we do feel like a lot of things are just being rammed through, whether it's the standing order changes and a variety of things like that. You know, the idea of consensus versus majority, that has become a big issue in this Parliament. And I personally, you know, once in a while, I will get caught up, and I try to not because I have my children watching, but you sit there and you do find yourself so irritable when you're asking a prime minister 40 questions and you get the same non-answer 40 times. So it has become very frustrating. Maybe it's because I've been here now for 18 months, but I can tell you the frustration level for myself, and I'm rather reasonable, is a little higher than usual.
I have to tell you, before you got here, they asked a lot of questions of the Prime Minister. Didn't get many answers either.
But 40 questions in a row there, John.
I would agree with Karen in that you can draw a straight line back to when the Liberals tried to unilaterally change the standing orders, and it caused all sorts of chaos in the House. And I think when they demonstrated that ability to go ahead without reaching a consensus with the opposition, things went downhill really quickly. And I agree with Karen. Like, sometimes the level of frustration with the non-answers, we appreciate that the Prime Minister is willing to answer more questions, but it's not really doing a lot of justice to the Liberal Party when the answers he gives would be better served by a minister standing in his place.
It's called question period, not answer period. You can't get that.
We're going to change. So it'll be Prime Minister's answer period.
So let me first just say that I have a lot of respect for both of my colleagues, both Karen and Alistair. I've had the chance to work with, including appearing on these panels, and they're hardworking representatives for their communities. We don't always agree on policy, but I thought Arnold's call to civility was an appropriate one.
Right.
I'm a little more optimistic. There are definitely days where it can be frustrating, a little hot in the chamber. But what I do want to take a moment to acknowledge is that the House leader, who's got and all House leaders have a tough job, but the government House leader, who has the important job of really ensuring that the schedule moves through the House efficiently, maintains an open door policy to all members of Parliament, to all parties. And I think that is the key thing for the opposition to bear in mind. They may not always like all of the proposals or the policies that get put on the table, but as long as they can walk into that office and ensure that there's a good faith discussion about how we can move to the business of Canadians as quickly and efficiently, as transparently as possible, then that's a good thing.
Here ends the Bartis Chagger promotion piece. Let's move along. This next one's, I admit, it's an inside baseball pitch, but a bunch of MPs insist this is a very bizarre move and needs a better answer. So this is about replacing the top administrative officer in the Commons. The new clerk of the House of Commons will not be longtime deputy clerk and renowned expert on procedure, Mark Boyce, who was interim clerk since last year. Here's the reactions in the House of Commons this afternoon as he bowed out to be replaced by Charles Robert, the current clerk in the Senate.
As Speaker, I've appreciated his procedural acumen his administrative counsel, the reassurance of his calm demeanor, and his friendship. Once again, thank you, Mark, for your exceptional service to the House of Commons.
All right, lots of applause. Karen, do you smell something wrong here, that the guy who's the obvious heir apparent doesn't get it because the Liberal Party says no? Or the
Well, I'm really still looking for more answers. I mean, we've even seen the second edition where he's the co-author of it. So we know that he was very meant for this type of job, and he's done such a sensational job since he's taken this role on in 2014.
A lot of MPs upset, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think we have great respect for the man.
Quick thought from you?
I agree. I mean, we were just never given the chance to even contemplate everyone else. A name was put forward. It was not Mark Bosk, and we are still left searching with answers about what the government's appointment process is. I understand the Procedure and House Affairs was looking at it.
Well, I just would say thank you again to Mark for all of his service. And yeah, I mean, I've got a copy of that. I've got a nice copy of that Bible, and as a bit of a law geek, a recovering law geek, I still go back to it to take a look at standing orders. But I would thank him for his service and just reiterate that we have an open merit-based appointments process, very transparent, and we're raising the bar on it.
How does the guy who wrote the book get tossed and some guy from the Senate get called in?
Yeah, no, it was a very open, transparent process. But we thank Mark. And you know, it was actually nice to see. It was nice to see the speaker get choked up a little bit about it. Obviously spoke to their friendship. So
I'm out of time, but if that was inside baseball, you swung and missed on that one, Mark. All right, have a good summer, everybody. We'll see you in the fall. Coming up.